folks, how's it going? So it has been quite a while since I found anything decent at the local dump. I've had Xboxes, Xbox 360s, broken PlayStation 3s, Wii's, Xbox One, PlayStation 2, but nothing very interesting really. Until a few days ago when I found these two beauties. So the first is a Spectrum Plus, and it's in quite frankly wonderful condition. It's pretty much mint. Could do with a bit of a clean. I give it a quick wipe over with some baby wipes, but could do with a bit of clean, bit of, get all the dirt out of the grooves and stuff. And it works. Although it needs a new keyboard membrane. I plugged it in, powered up, and a few of the keys work, a few of the keys don't, and I popped it open, farted about with the keyboard, where the ribbon plugs into the motherboard. Messed about, made it worse, tried again, made it better. I just can't get all the keys to work, so it definitely needs a new keyboard membrane, and also I will put new capacitors in it. So yeah, that's a nice find. It's the first Spectrum Plus that I've ever owned. I have quite a few of the rubber keyboard versions, which is the one that I remember. Just put a label on the bottom of it for my own guide, because this will probably go on a shelf for a month or two before I do anything to it. So yeah, that was a nice find in itself. But the star of the show is this little beauty. So this is a Oric Atmos. I know about these computers. I have watched videos on them and read about them in the past, but I've never seen one in the flesh, and to find one at the local dump is absolutely amazing. And brought it home, took it apart, and there was very little dust inside it, a couple of fur balls that I brushed out, and I rigged up a power supply. These run on the same power supply as the Spectrum, only the polarity is switched, so it's a center positive rather than center negative. So I modified a Spectrum power supply just to get this thing tested, and it fired straight up, works perfectly, all the keys work. So this thing, I think, has had very little use. There are a few scrapes on it, on this smooth part of the plastic. This part's textured, this part's smooth, so there's a few little scrapes on it there, but they're really just character marks. There's no major damage. And yeah, I actually really like this keyboard. So these were made as a competitor to the Spectrum, really. It has 48K. It runs on a 6502. The processor is the same processor that's in the BBC and the Commodore PET, and quite a few other things of the time. Yeah, so really happy with this thing. So I actually don't have any screws in the bottom of it at the minute. I'll explain the switch in a minute. So I'll just pop the bottom off here. So yeah, really nice little system, these. Very well made, in my opinion. Where's the processor? Yeah, 6502A processor in it. That's the ULA and the ROM. So as you can see, this switch is connected to the ROM chip. Here is the original ROM chip from the computer. So this is actually a dual ROM which I got made. my friend on Facebook, Roy. I'll put a link to Roy's YouTube channel down in the description below. He is really good at modding and doing chips and all the stuff that I can't do. Doesn't make an awful lot of YouTube videos, but he does have some on his channel, so he's worth giving them a visit, checking it out. So I contacted Roy and asked him about this dual ROM after I was told about it by another guy. So basically the Oric 1, the first version of this, had a different ROM, so it had like version 1, and then the Atmos had version 1.1 ROM, and apparently that can cause some incompatibility with certain games. So this is the solution. So this has both versions of the ROM on it, and you just flick that switch and it changes it from version 1 to version 1.1. So I just got this ROM chip today and it's working perfectly. I tested it out and yep, it does what it's meant to do. So I have yet to mount that switch somewhere. Haven't even figured out where exactly I'm going to put it. I want it somewhere out of the way where you can't see it, but I will be drilling a hole in this to mount that switch. So yeah, it's been pretty cool playing about with this thing. Getting games loaded on it is another story altogether. These things are notorious for being bad loaders. They're really picky about volume and bass and treble, and if you don't get everything perfect, it just refuses to load. So I have spent days farting about this, and just today actually I hit that sweet spot and have been able to get some games loaded via WAV files, or WAV files, I prefer to call them WAV files, from my laptop. Saying that, I did actually buy some proper cassettes for this thing, none of which I have got to load yet. I still haven't found that sweet spot while using an actual tape player. So I'll show you what games I got here. I got the infamous Cassette 50, which has 50 shitty games on it. This is brand new. So I thought this would be an easy one for testing, you know, because the programs are quite short. You can just try with the short program. If it doesn't work, change the volume, try again. If it doesn't work, change the volume. And I was at it for about an hour and a half and I just gave up. I just could not get anything to load. I seem to be able to get the loading screens, you know, it'll come up loading and you'll give it like a splash screen of whatever game it is. And yeah, it just refuses to properly load the whole program. And it seems to be the same for anything I've tried. So I don't know what the problem is, whether my cassette recorder, I've actually tried 2 different cassette recorders. They're just not perfectly suited to these things because they are notorious, like I said, for being bad at loading. So I got Cassette 50, I got Pasta Blasta, Light Cycle, Ultima Zone, 2 Gun Turtle, the Ultra, whatever that is, Land of Illusion, I think that's a text-based type of game, Rat Splat, and Centipede. So, like I said, I haven't got any of them to load yet. And I also got, from the same guy I got the tapes off, I got an official Oric power supply. So, yeah. It's cool, so I don't have to, I can redo my Spectrum one that I hacked to get this thing to work. So I'm just using this now. So I also made myself a cassette lead. This socket is actually the same as the cassette socket on a Dragon 32. So this is a modified Dragon 32 cable. Apparently it's the same for the BBC. The same wiring works for the BBC, but this is a Dragon cable, which I had to change the wires around on a couple of pins. So I don't have a remote on it, I've just got out from the cassette and back into the cassette. So that works fine. Like I said, I've got the games loading from my laptop now. So these things actually output RGB straight from one of the sockets at the back, but I have yet to buy an RGB cable for it, so I'm just using standard RF at the minute. This is the cassette lead and then the power. And I have the cassette lead is running across and into the headphone jack on the laptop. So if I open up this folder here, get the file ready to play. So it's now searching, and then I'll start that playing, and it's now loading. So with loading the WAV files, it's a bit weird. So the file's actually finished playing and the Oric still says it's loading, but if I press play again on the file, the game boots. So there's like a bit missing off the end of the WAV files, and you need to sort of restart it again to trigger it on the Oric. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but that's the way I'm doing it to have to get these things to work. Oops. Bollocks. I'm at a weird angle here. The fucking French national anthem. Pish. Bollocks. So the sound's not very loud on this game. That's actually the loudest volume setting. The sound actually comes out of the computer rather than the TV speaker, although you can modify the cassette cable with a line out on it, so I plan on doing that. So that's it. Really stoked to have got this thing. Rescued it from the dump. A quirky little computer. Actually, these things fetch quite a few quid, which I was surprised at. But I think this one's a keeper, rather than, you know, just selling it on. I think I'll keep this one. I do like it. I like the design of it. I like the quirkiness. If I could just get the cassettes to load, I'd be very happy. But I can play games via the laptop, so I'm happy enough. So there you go. Two very nice finds at the dump. Run out of time. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one. Bye for now.